Hi there, welcome back to my channel. My name's Molly, I'm the maker behind Lefty Knits, and today I want to talk about what I'm planning on making this fall. So fall's quickly approaching, which seems crazy. Here it's still very warm outside, but that's pretty typical here. Usually the warmest months in Berkeley and the general Bay Area are September and October. We tend to have late summers here. It doesn't really start to heat up at all until about July. Although, since I've been back as an adult, it's been much warmer than it was when I was a kid, in general, and fire season started. Anyway, today I'm wearing my self-drafted tank made out of Juniper Moon Farm Finley lace weight yarn, held double. This is in the colorway Caramel, I believe, although I think that this particular color has been discontinued. If you want to hear more about that, go ahead and watch my first video. I'll leave a link to that up in the corner. Today I want to share 4 patterns I've been thinking of making this fall. None of them are super snuggly and cozy like some of you might make for fall because, like I said, it remains pretty warm here. Even through the winter, you know, this isn't a place where we experience snow. But I'm excited about these patterns and I think they're generally seasonally appropriate. Not to mention I will be making some trips to the southeast this fall and winter, so I will need some warmer garments. The first pattern I want to make is the Singularity by Swanky Emu Knits. It is a very adaptable pattern, but I plan on making it out of these 4 yarns. So starting with this one, this is Dream in Color Classy in the color Gray Tabby. This is Rowan Pure Wool Superwash Worsted in I think natural or ivory. I don't see a colorway on here, but you know, just like a natural off-white. This is Malabrigo Rios in Cosmos. And this is Earl Grey Fiber Company on the Chai Worsted base in Hydrangea. So I started out first getting this yarn. This yarn is the Earl Grey Fiber Company Chai Worsted. I was at one of my local yarn shops, Black Squirrel Berkeley. Great store, highly recommend, amazing yarns. And this is a shop exclusive base, I believe. So I was in the store, I think I was there to get something, but I might have been just browsing. And this yarn absolutely like enchanted me. I saw it and I knew I immediately needed to buy it. And so I picked it up. Now, the other yarn that may have been the first one that I purchased was the Dream in Color Classy in Gray Tabby. It's just like a light medium gray. I think I bought this with the intention of making socks, but I cast on a pair of Sunday socks by Petite Knit and it never really came to fruition. That one's still floating around somewhere in my knitting bins. So I figure perhaps this could have a different life. I picked up this yarn, the Earl Grey Fiber Company Chai Worsted yarn, which is a 100% superwash merino. All of these yarns are, and this one is 100 grams and 218 yards. So when I picked this up, I thought maybe I could make a fun top with yarns that I picked up at different local yarn stores, particularly while I was traveling. So I bought this probably a little less than a year ago, and I was about to go on a trip to a couple different places for various weddings, and I thought that perhaps I would visit local yarn stores in those areas and I could make a tee using a few different yarns of places I went in 2021. Unfortunately, when I was looking at those different stores, I wasn't able to find worsted weight yarns that really like spoke to me. I was hoping I would be able to pick up shop exclusives or yarn from local dyers, and I wasn't really able to find what I was looking for at those stores to pair with this yarn. So in the end, I held onto the skein and went back to the drawing board. The singularity is something I was thinking of. I was thinking of using this yarn in that pattern, and with, you know, other yarns that I found locally at various shops. But eventually, when I realized local shops weren't really going to cut it, I thought more about the yarns that I had in my stash, and I realized I had this Dream in Color Classy. So this is 4 ounces and 250 yards. So there's a ½ ounce more of yarn than this. 100 grams is 3.5 ounces. This is 4 ounces. So the weight was like pretty similar, and I was thinking maybe I could make this work. Once I realized I could pair these two yarns together, I had to think about what color or colors would make sense with this yarn. So that's where these two came in. So these two yarns I got, I just ordered from Webs recently. They're both worsted, they're both superwash, and this one may not. The Rowan Pure Wool Superwash Worsted may not be merino, but it has a similar feel to the others. It has a similar weight to the others. This one is 219 yards for 100 grams. And the Malabrigo Rios is 210 yards for 100 grams. And, you know, they all are similarly plied, and I thought, essentially, I thought that having a lighter blue and a natural color would sort of round out this palette really well. And this is, over the last couple days, is the first time that I've looked at all these colors in person together, and I think that this will make a really cool looking tee. So the designer behind Swanky Emu Knits, her name is Sarah, I believe, doesn't write patterns as such. Now, I haven't bought the pattern, so I don't know exactly what documentation comes with it, but she uses a method called sizing with spreadsheets, where essentially you put in all of your information. You put in the yarn that you're using, or the gauge of the yarn that you're using. So you make a swatch, you measure the row and stitch gauge, you put in key measurements from your own body, and out comes exactly the stitch counts that you need. And I think that's super cool. It's very size inclusive. Sarah mentions that she, you know, always felt like she had to modify patterns to work for her body. And this way, there's no upper size limit, there's no lower size limit. If there's sort of parts of your body that don't measure in a conventional hourglass way, you're able to adapt the pattern as such just by putting in your own measurements. So I'm really excited to try that. I think that's such an awesome way to create patterns, and I'm looking forward to using these yarns. Oh no, it's unraveling. Whoop. I'm looking forward to using these yarns to make that top. And you can use as many colors as you want. It's 3 or more. And because there's no set gauge, you can use any gauge you want. So stay tuned and see how that one turns out. The second pattern is a little bit more traditionally cozy or warm weather, perhaps a little bit more of a winter item. But I'm planning on making the Billy pullover by Sari Nordland in this Jagger Spun worsted yarn. The base is called Zephyr, and it's 248 yards per 100 grams. This yarn is half wool, half silk. It's super soft. And I got it in Huntsville, Alabama. So my boyfriend is from Huntsville, and for Christmas, his mom very generously gave me a gift card to a local yarn store there. The store is called Fiber Artwork. If you're in the area, they stock some really gorgeous yarns. Now, they don't really have anything super local there. It is northern Alabama, and they have some yarns from Tennessee, but the owner, I asked her if there was anything local, and she was mentioning that, there aren't any particularly established dyers in Alabama, and she wanted to make sure that she was stocking quality items. Obviously, I'm not super familiar with yarn in Alabama, so if you know of any great dyers down there, please let me know. I'd love to support them. I went to the store looking for yarn for the Lodestar by Kirsten Rovetta. That's a pattern that came out in Pom Pom in the summer of 2021, that issue. And unfortunately, I didn't really find any DK weight yarns that felt like they would work super well for that pattern. There just wasn't, everything was like either super tonal or not a yarn that felt super unique to me. It was a yarn that I'd seen and stocked somewhere else, and I kind of wanted something that felt a little bit more special. And I ended up settling on this yarn, this yarn that's actually from Maine. So in the end, not that local, but I liked it. I really liked the color. It's a worsted weight, and at the time I thought perhaps I could make the Lodestar work in this yarn. And I liked that it kind of had subtle variations in color, but nothing too intense, because I really wanted that pattern to stand out. Now, when I swatched this yarn, it didn't really work out. I wasn't able to get a gauge that seemed like it would work with that pattern, at least not without a lot of fiddling, and I didn't really want to have to fiddle around. So I thought about what I would want to make with a brown yarn like this. Like, what item did I feel like my wardrobe was missing? What did I want to make? And I landed on a cabled sweater. So I looked at a bunch of all over cable sweater patterns, and I landed on the Billy pullover. I'm a little bit concerned about cabling. I have done a bit of cabling, but as a left-handed knitter, I'm worried about the way that my cable direction will go. I have already done a swatch in moss stitch, which is what this pattern calls for you to make a swatch in, and everything looks great, but I think I might have to make another one with cables so that I can check and see how my cables go directionally, because I'm comfortable with the act of cabling. I've done things with cables, but usually they were smaller and it didn't really matter what direction the cables were going in. But this is going to be a monster of a project, something that I hope will be really beautiful and versatile. I think this yarn would look great in a cable pattern. It's kind of a medium brown. It won't hide the cables. I think it'll really enhance them. And I don't know. I don't know how the cabling will go. I think I'm going to have to do some trial and error, which, as a lefty knitter who is always having to switch stuff around, I'm no stranger to that. So I'm excited to have that done. I'd really like to have it done for when I go to Alabama again in the fall or winter. I'm not sure exactly when I'm going yet, but besides the fact that it would be great to show my boyfriend's mother what I made with the yarn that I got using the gift card she gave me, it would be great to have there because it does get a little bit colder typically in the winter. So that's my second project. My third project is the Rider Cowl by Kacey Herlihy of Kacey Knits, and I'll be using this Jada Woo Designs yarn in, it's an Aran weight yarn, 100% superwash merino. The label looks like this. And the colorway is called Mixed Emotions. So there's 191 yards per 100 grams here. I don't know if the space is still available in the Jada Woo Designs shop, but you should definitely give her a look. So I got this yarn a while ago. Jessica of Jada Woo Designs very kindly sent me a sock set of her Pacific Northwest minis a while back, and it was great to work with. I think her yarns are dyed really beautifully, and I was excited to order a little bit more yarn. So I have some more of it. I made a hat, I made some mitts, and I have this skein left. And when I bought this, I was originally hoping that it might work with the chai worsted yarn to for the tea when the local yarn situation wasn't really working out. But the twist and the weight of this yarn when I had my hands on it was different enough that I just didn't want to use them together. So I've been thinking about what I would make with this for a while. I'm not a huge hat person, and I knit myself a hat last year that I really liked, so I didn't want to make another one of those. I didn't want to make a headband, any sort of cold weather head accessory. Mittens aren't really necessary, you know. So in thinking of what to make with this single skein, ultimately I landed on a cowl. So Kacey of Kacey Knits, Kacey Herlihy, is a designer that is local to me. She's in the Bay Area. She actually works at Black Squirrel Berkeley, and she's a very talented designer. Most of her patterns are cowls and shawls, and I don't wear too many of those anymore since coming back to Berkeley, but I decided that maybe this yarn would be a good one for a cowl project. So I looked at Kacey's designs. I have a few of them, a few of her cowl patterns, but I didn't have any worsted weight ones. So I checked to see if she had worsted and DK patterns, and the Rider cowl is one of them, and I really like it. I think it looks cool. It has a little wavy, cable-y looking eyelet pattern to it, and I think that this yarn will look good with that. I'm looking forward to knitting this one. I think it'll go quick and be kind of fun. It's my third design of Kacey's that I'll be finishing. I've made a cowl, and funnily enough, I also made her modest mitts with another one of Jada Woo Designs yarns in the colorway Jada Woo here. So I think this will be great, a really good winter accessory, and very good on some of my trips to colder areas this winter and fall. My fourth and final pattern that I'm planning on making this fall, and I'll be making these in no particular order, by the way, is the Frequency Sweater by Tina Say. So I'll be using these two yarns for that. This is Merino Singles Ching Fiber in Okinami, and this is the Wandering Flock. It's 100% superwash merino fingering, single ply also, and it's in the colorway Cosmic Tie-Dye. So I got these yarns at different times, both of them on trips again. So the Cosmic Tie-Dye I got in Boston, Massachusetts at Bead and Fiber. It's a store in the South End. And I had actually never been. I got this on the trip in October. I was mentioning earlier, talking about my fall trip in 2021 for some weddings. I was in the Boston area for weddings, and I wanted to check out some local yarn stores there. So back when I lived in Boston, I didn't really shop so much at local stores. It didn't help that I walked by a Michael's every single day to and from work. Like, I passed it twice a day. So I was in there a lot. I also passed a local yarn store, Mind's Eye Yarn in Cambridge in the Porter Square area. But at the time I was a little bit worried about looking silly in that store because I wasn't as versed in different yarns, which is of course on me. I'm sure there are very nice people at that store. I really regret it now that I didn't actually just go in, because when it came time to go on my trip, since there were still some COVID restrictions in place, the store was working on appointment only. And I was a little bit nervous to make an appointment. Even though at this point I'm comfortable in local yarn stores, maybe I'm not as comfortable talking on the phone and calling to make appointments. So I was looking for another store to go to. I found Bead and Fiber in the South End, and I really enjoyed the store. I wasn't able to find anything from the Boston area in that store that I liked, any yarn. They didn't actually have much in stock. A few local dye companies listed bead and fiber as stockists, but unfortunately they had low stock in the store at the time. So I looked around for some other things and I found this tie-dye yarn to be very unique and fun. And little did I know, I would start to hear about the wandering flock pretty often coming up. So it's been 8 to 10 months since my trip, and I've found a bunch of patterns, including the one that I'm making, the frequency sweater, that have the wandering flock merino single ply yarn as their suggested yarn. And at the time when I bought this, I was thinking, oh, you know, I'd probably make a tank of some kind, but I'm happy that I got some other ideas. When the frequency sweater came out, I noticed that this was the recommended yarn. I really liked the pattern, was super excited about it. And I looked on the Wandering Flock store to see if there were any other yarns that I wanted to buy to pair this with. And there were some that were really nice. I would add them to my cart and sit there and think about it. And in the end, I didn't really want to buy yarn until I was ready to work on the project, at least not ordered to come to me. So I was waiting on it when I realized on my trip to London in May that I would maybe be able to pick up some Ching fiber yarn. So that's where this yarn came in. That's what this yarn is. We were well stocked at Loop London, which was the store that I thought I could most feasibly go to, and I really liked the look of. And it had a similar weight, and you know, it's also a single ply yarn. I think the yardage per 100 grams is the same or very similar. So I figured this was a good choice for pairing, and they had a bunch of colors at Loop London where I ended up buying this yarn. It took me a really long time to figure out which yarn I wanted to use as the base for my frequency sweater. I found this yarn a little bit hard to pair. I wanted the color work to be pretty distinct. I tend to like that look where you can sort of, like, even if it's variegated, you can see where the contrasting yarn is and where the main color is pretty clearly. So there were a lot of different yarns. I ended up getting a different one, Rosy, on my first trip because I figured I'd probably want 3 skeins. The pattern says, I forget what the yardage is for my size, which is like the 2nd or 3rd size, but it's like a little bit more than 3 skeins, or a little bit more than 2 skeins. But unfortunately, and this yarn I'd picked out immediately as a color that I liked. I didn't have this yarn with me. I was just sort of guessing. But I picked this yarn out as one that I would like, but there were only 2 skeins. So unfortunately, I put it down. I picked up a different color and brought that one back to my hotel. That color is Rosy. It's also a very pretty color. I did end up bringing it home with me as well, but I couldn't stop thinking about this colorway and looking at the pattern more and thinking about like what size I would want to make and how I would want to do it and how long I'd want the sleeves and the body. And I figured I might actually be able to get away with 2 skeins because it doesn't use a whole 3rd skein. And the one that Tina Say models is a little bit less fitted, a little longer in the body and perhaps in the sleeves than I think I would want. So I bought 2 skeins of this. I'm hoping that if I just knit to the armpits, split off the arms, knit most of the arms, I'll be in the clear to just knit the rest of the body and have enough yarn. Now, I don't know if this will pick up on camera, but the two skeins left do have a different color to them. This isn't a whole skein, by the way, nor perhaps is this. I had some trouble with my winder. It started to eat my yarn, so I had to break things up into tiny balls trying to unwind the bad skeins. So I don't know if it's showing up that these are a little bit different. I'm not super bothered by that, but I think I might end up trying helical knitting if I can figure that out. I don't know how easy it is to do with color work, but my plan is to try that so that I don't end up with holes in my work where I'm switching yarns or issues with pooling. So I'm excited for this. I think that these will look really good together. I think this is a little bit more dramatic than the Wandering Flock with the Rosie, which I'll insert pictures of. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So those 4 patterns are my main plans for the fall. These are all the yarns that I'm going to be using. Not every bit of all the yarns. I have many more skeins of this Jagger spun, but I think it's looking pretty good. Very blue. I'm curious to hear what you have planned for the fall. What knits are you excited about in the upcoming colder seasons? Is there anything you want to make sure that you have for the winter or for the colder months? Any warm accessories, any sweaters? Drop me a line down below in the comments and let me know what you're thinking of. Thanks so much for tuning in. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.